get to the mic about. You got to sit with that song. When you think about even me, I don't know your testimony, I don't know your story, but when you think about what you have been through, what you think about where you may have been and where God has you now, God remembered even you. How many are grateful that God remembers even you in the midst of you being you? God remembers even you. It's that grace of God. It's that mercy of God. Who are we that God is mindful of us? Even us. But yet he cares. And he has your face implanted on his hand. So even you, yes, because God is a father, a loving mother who loves even you, even us. Give God some praise. Eternal God, our Father, we are grateful that you are here with us. We are here that you gave us your grace and your mercy today, God. We're grateful that even us, God, despite the times we may have been unfaithful, despite the times we may have denied you, despite the times we may have been wavering, God, even us, you still remembered us. And you still kept us. And we know that it's by your might and by your strength and by your mercy that we are here right now. So God, I pray that you bless this time of sharing. I pray that you bless this time of teaching, God. God, please bless your awaiting congregation. Move Ricky completely out the way, God. And you have your way in this place. I thank you, God, that you even allow someone like me to be up here, God. Even me, God. We thank you for all these blessings. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Y'all have a seat. Y'all sit down. How y'all feeling this morning? How y'all feeling this morning? Oh, that song had y'all up. Y'all feeling good? All right. I certainly hope that you all have enjoyed this sermon series that we've been doing on hymns. I'm glad you have. We have been rewatching them at home even going back to praise worship, watching the whole service. So yeah, we really have been enjoying it here. And I'm going to let y'all know already that I had to call in a pitch hitter because you don't want me to sing any hymns. Yeah. Even me, God did not bless me with a voice. Do not pass me by, God, pass me by. Is that me? I'm sorry. We good? All right. So, yeah, when we say do not pass me by, when it came to passing out singing voices, God passed me by. He hit everybody else in my family except for me. So I have a pitch hitter today. I hope you don't mind. So when it comes to hymns, my introduction to the hymns, it came from our Father's church. And at that church, we had a few choirs, 3 that I can remember. We had the combined choir, which was everybody singing together. You had the Christianeers. The Christianeers, Pastor Queen was a part of the Christianeers. That's how long I've known Pastor Queen. The Christianeers and the combined choir, they did songs that you knew. They did songs off of WBGR, Heaven 600. You know, if you listen to Naomi Durant or Lee Michaels, they did the songs you knew. But then you had the chancel choir. A couple of y'all laughing, so you know what the chancel choir is. That was the vintage people choir. And I'm not saying old, I'm saying vintage or classic. If you are a churchgoer, you know the chancel choir. The chancel choir, they didn't sing the popular songs. They sung hymns and anthems. Hymns and anthems. If it wasn't in the red hymnal or in that black Songs of Zion book, they did not sing it. And I'm going to be completely honest with y'all, I did not like coming to church on the Sundays that they sang. And of course, being a preacher's kid, I was born into it. I had to be there pretty much every Sunday. And when I saw the transfer choir, I'm like, doggone it, because I knew it was going to be something I didn't like. All right, so it was going to be boring. I knew the hymns did absolutely nothing for me as a kid. But I do remember seeing on the choir Mother Maggie Poole, Mother Carrie Parsons. I would see them, and they would have their hands up in worship. I couldn't understand why. The songs were boring. I didn't get why I was hitting different to them, but it was doing something for them. So when we started FC3, and when my father, he came out of the Methodist tradition. So he brought some of the traditions of having an opening hymn in the service and then having a prayer hymn. How many of y'all old First Christian remember when we used to have an opening hymn and prayer hymn, right? Okay, so when we did it, matter of fact, if you look at underneath your seats, we have little compartments where we were supposed to have hymnals, but we don't use them. Y'all been using them as footrests. Y'all laughing because you know it's the truth. All right, so when we finally hired musicians, we did not start out with musicians. We started off with just a hand clap and a foot stomp. But when we finally hired musicians, we finally got a piano player, we finally got a drummer, we finally got a bass player, then the hymns started to sound a little bit different to me. They started to have a little beat to them. I could groove with it a little bit more. And I remember like Sister Valerie Hill, she used to lead Me, Guide Me. That was her hymn. Or she would tear the church down with He Looked Beyond My Faults and Saw My Needs. And if you're old First Christian, or if you used to rock with us at the Pink Church, how many of y'all used to be with us at the Pink Church? Elder Barry would pull double duty. And I remember one of the hymns he used to lead was Jesus, Lover of My Soul. And then when he finished doing that, he finished leading the hymn, then he was directing the choir. And he started directing them with, If You're Happy and You Know It. I tried to get him to do it, but say amen. But the hymn that I want to share today is Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. And every time I hear it, I can hear Pastor Queen's voice as he led it. And I remember the parts he would tear into, and he would have the whole church up whenever he led that song. But even though I eventually liked how some of these hymns sounded musically, I knew on the surface what was being said. I could understand the words. I made sense of the words. But it wasn't until I got older that the words really start to resonate with me. So with that, with Pastor Kay, she said in her intro, she said, it's when you get a little bit older, it's when you've been through some things yourself that those hymns take on a different meaning. And it makes sense to me now why the chancel choir were the older folks. They weren't just singing lyrics. They were singing their experience. They weren't just saying words, but they were singing about their circumstances that they had overcome or had been kept through. And that is where the power of the hymn lies. It's not in the individual who wrote them, but it's in the power of the experience that is shared in the God that it testifies about. It's in the power of speaking to our human condition, giving God praise in the midst of what we're going through or the victory we have overcome. Now, for me, I'm a music lover. I can pretty much tolerate all genres, but the songs that really grab me are the ones that are coming from a writer's deep place. It's those deep-rooted songs that can move me. I'm going to tell y'all a secret, but don't tell nobody, okay? Even though we're online. I'm a closet Beyonce fan. I'm a closet Beyonce fan. I'm not going to play her in my car, but I might have it on my phone, okay? So the album that she has that really got me was Lemonade, because she was singing from such a deep place. I preached a whole sermon on it years ago, but she was singing from a really, really deep place. In every song, she was pouring her soul out, and I just love that album. I love how she put it out. It's when people give you those real songs that you can really go with it. Now, I'm going to prove it. How many of y'all love Mary J. Blige? What was Mary J. Blige's best stuff? When she was dealing with KC. You might like Dancery, you might kick your feet to that, but Not Gonna Cry hits a little bit different. It's when you're dealing with that hard stuff. Pastor Queen, he shared it so well last week, the depth of suffering that Thomas Dorsey had when he wrote Precious Lord, Take My Hand, or when Horatio Spafford, when he endured losing his son and then his 4 daughters, and then he wrote, It Is Well With My Soul. It is those deep hymns that hit us. And I feel that's true for our hymn today. So I have to tell you about the author, because when you know the author of the hymn, then it starts to connect. Then it starts to make a little more sense. The author of the hymn was Robert Robinson. He lived during the 1700s in England. And when you look at his story, you'll understand why he wrote what he did. Robinson, he lost his father when he was only 8 years old. And even though his grandfather had wealth and could take care of the family, he had disowned his own daughter. He only gave her what you would equate to about $100 in our money today to live off. That was her inheritance. I'm going to give you $100, you take care of your family. She couldn't do that. So they fell into poverty. So he's wandering from place to place with his mom. He's impoverished. And his mom, she's trying to find a way to allow him to live a good life. So she sends him away as an indentured servant, and he's going to live with a barber. And he was to serve with a barber for 7 years. He would learn the trade, hopefully make some money, learn to do better for himself. So he gets sent away to London. And he was a smart kid. He was a very book smart kid, according to research. But he had a way of falling into trouble. He used to run with gangs. Yes, they had gangs back then. But he used to run with gangs. And the story has that one night, he and his gang, they were out. So they decided to pick on a fortune teller. So they wanted to get her drunk and see if she would predict their fortunes for free. Or just see if she would just make up stuff. So they got her drunk. They're waiting for her to say something really stupid, but what she does is she looks at Robinson and says, You're going to live to see your children and your grandchildren. So then he stops, and he starts recalibrating his life. He's like, maybe I need to change. But you know, sometimes when we try to get things right, it takes a little while to get right. We fall back into old habits. And that was Robinson. He fell back into his old habits of running with his gang again. So what they were going to do this time, they were going to go to this preacher that was in town. There was a preacher named George Whitefield. Who was George Whitefield? George Whitefield was basically the English version of T.D. Jakes. He was the biggest preacher around. So they were going to go to his service, and they were going to make fun of all the people that were there at worship. They're going to tease them. They're going to try to heckle the preacher while he's preaching. But what happened was this. God had his way, and God started convicting him in the midst of the sermon. And he wasn't able to make fun of the preacher. And he did not receive salvation right away. It took him another 3 years to get saved. So he got saved, and then he eventually became a preacher himself, and he had his own church. And it was while he was a pastor, he was getting ready for Pentecost Sunday, and he penned the words to Come Thou Fount. And as I stated before, I started to like the song because of how Pastor Queen would lead it. But it wasn't until I got older that I really appreciated the lyrics and what was being asked of God. And more importantly, I understood the personal struggle that the writer was going through. And it's this: life and faith, it's a journey. Life is not a straight line. It's a winding road. It has twists and turns. Life be lifing. Sometimes, or even worse, it'll be us that be using. And we can mess up life. But if we're all honest, our walk with God, our walk in our faith hasn't always been easy. It's been full of hills and valleys. And that's the ultimate plea that Robinson makes in this hymn. But there are three dominant images that Robinson references in the song, and that's what I want to focus for today. The first image is this, and that is a fountain. Come thou fount of every blessing. Tune my heart to sing thy grace. Can you put the fountain up for me, please, if you don't mind? In the fountain, he's giving praise to God that there's an unending stream of mercy that's coming. God never runs out. There is a free flow that comes to you. And he is thankful, he is praising God for this free flow of mercy, this free flow of grace that God just so willingly gives. God is so willing to forgive us. Now, if I can put a side note, it's really amazing that God is always willing to forgive us, but we have a hard time forgiving some others, don't we? We can mess up with the same thing many times. I'll speak for myself. How many times have I, Ricky, spoken to God and say, God, you know what, I messed up. This was number 17, but I thank you for grace. But let somebody mess up with me one time. We're not as always quick with the grace. That was my little side note, but let me get back to it. But I guess that's why I'm not God. Because grace and forgiveness is always supposed to be given. And even though that image of a free-flowing fountain should be enough, you can't stop there. Many times when we go to services and we hear people singing hymns, they may just sing just the first verse in the chorus and that's it, or sing the first verse and the last verse and that's it. The problem is this: when you only do like the first verse or the last verse, it's like watching the first 15 minutes and the last 15 minutes of a movie. You miss the whole middle. You don't know how they got from point A to point Z. Knowing the whole story. When a hymnist is penning their hymns, they're trying to take you on a journey. They're trying to move you through their thoughts. And you have to see how everything connects to make full sense and have the full appreciation of the hymn. So we start off, we have the stream of mercy that's never ending. We have this plenteous grace that is always there, that has a readily supply for us to tap into. Now, here's my favorite part. My favorite part in this is the second verse, which says, "Here I raise my Ebenezer. Hither by thy help I've come." Now, what is an Ebenezer? I'm glad you asked. An Ebenezer is not a church that's down the street. An Ebenezer is not the dude that hates Christmas. An Ebenezer is a stone of help. It is a memorial. It is a marker of how far that God has brought you. And he's saying, I know how far I've come, and I'm marking how far you have brought me in my life. And that is something that we all need to take account of and think about. How far has God brought you? What is the last thing that God brought you through? Matter of fact, I want to make this a challenge. Media team, get ready. We can make this a hashtag. Hashtag my Ebenezer. If you don't know how to spell Ebenezer, I'll give it to you. It's E-B-E-N-E-Z-E-R. One more time. E-B-E-N-E-Z-E-R. I got that right, I think. Okay, cool. So, Ebenezer, how far? What is the last thing that God brought you through? Can I testify real quick? Y'all cool? I'm going to do it anyway, but I was going to ask. All right. Put the next picture up for me. Come on, brother. Work with me. The next picture. My Ebenezer. On my phone, I have marked my Ebenezer. And it is my pregnant wife. Why is this my Ebenezer? Why is this my point of remembering? Here's the story. We're an older couple. When we got married, we knew that probably having kids may be a little bit dicey because we're in our mid-30s. But we said, listen, we're going to give it a year. We're going to give it a year to see what happens. If something happens, cool. If not, then we're going to start maybe talking to medicals. So a year happened, nothing happened. No kid. Then we started talking to fertility clinics. We spent, was about 4 years working with fertility clinics. We had 7 failed attempts. there was many days where we just couldn't say anything to each other. We were just hurt. I remember one time we were sitting on a park bench after we got the bad news. We had nothing to say to each other. It's like, what do you say? We prayed to God. We believed in God. We try to do what some people tell us, to pray with expectancy, to claim it like you got it. But it didn't happen. So what do? We kept on praying, but nothing was happening. That was years. And then what happened was we were getting to work with another clinic. And they told us, listen, your insurance doesn't cover this. Your insurance actually, no, it covers a piece, but it's going to be zapped up. You're going to have to come out of your pocket about $25,000. Right. $25,000 you're going to have to come out of pocket. And we were debating it, we were going back and forth, but then something else happened. Last year, our basement flooded. 3 inches of water in our whole entire basement. Flooded. My wife's business was in the basement. She had to relocate. My business was in the basement. I mean, fortunately, none of my stuff got hurt, but still. The basement's still not in full repair. So we had to make a decision. Are we going to use this money to take care of our house, or we're going to try to work on the kid? And honestly, we couldn't decide. It was like, you know what? We're not gonna worry about the kid right now. We got to get the basement together. We can't have mold in the basement, stuff like that. We're going to try to work on the basement. Let's take care of that. But then it hit a point where it's this. It was one morning. Chris was gone. Beanie was somewhere else. I don't remember where he was. But I was by myself in the bed, and I don't get asthmatic often, meaning tears in my eyes. But I was praying, and I said to God, I said, listen, I have nothing else. I don't have money to take care of both of these things. I don't have anything else. All I got is you. You're the only thing I have. You're all I got. I don't have the income for a kid. I don't have the income for my basement. I don't have it. I don't know what to say with my wife when she's crying pretty much every month. I don't have anything to give. And I'm so frustrated. I'm so done. I said, you know what? Listen, take it all. Take everything. I have nothing. Take it all. Do whatever you're going to do. Do what you will do. I have nothing else to offer you. And then March this year, I found out I have a baby girl coming. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm not saying that to boast myself. I'm saying that to boast about my God. The thing is this. You got to remember what God has done for you. Anytime I get down in my head about what's going to happen tomorrow and we're going to have enough finances, I got to look at this picture and remember my Ebenezer. What has God done for me? And if you cannot think of what God has done for you, take a selfie, because you are alive right now and God has kept you. Take a selfie. If you can't think of nothing else, take a picture of your own self. Because you're standing right now and you have not died. You have taken a breath and it's not your last. If you don't know what else, thank God that you're here right now. What is my Ebenezer? My Ebenezer is my daughter that's coming. It's my wife that's coming. And it's the God that provided it, because I had nothing else. You have nothing to offer God. None of you have nothing to offer God, but He has everything to give to you. Everything. Post that picture. What is your Ebenezer. That's a lyric you can't let go of. You have to understand what it means. God has helped me this far. And here's the beautiful thing about God. It's this far at this moment. I still got further to go. And he's going to help me get even further. When my daughter gets here, it's going to be a picture of my daughter and my son, because God has helped me this far. How far has God helped you to this point? And the last thing is this. Despite knowing what God had did for him, despite knowing how far that God had kept him, Robinson still has some issues where we would fall down. He says, I'm prone to wander. I feel it. There is a difference between walking and wandering. If I'm walking, I know where I'm going. When I'm wandering, I probably lost my focus. How many times we pray and then we're praying to God and then all of a sudden we start thinking about what we got to eat for dinner? We lose focus. Or we can read our Bible app and then the next thing you know, Monopoly Go is popping up. We lose focus. So what God is saying is, I need to be bound to grace. Let that grace, where's my grace? Let that grace, like a fetter is handcuffs. Let that grace bind my wandering heart to thee. He wants to be handcuffed to God's grace. Now, why am I using young Cameron here as my grace? Because too many times when we talk about God, we try to use a man. We're trying to use, a paternal information. We like to show God's grace, show God's strength, but we don't use the delicacy of God's grace. God isn't just winning you by his strength. He's winning you by his quiet grace and his delicate mercy. And when you are attached to God's grace, you're not supposed to take it for granted. He offers it freely, but we're not supposed to abuse it. Be mindful of what you're attached to. God's grace is delicate. It's delicate, it's pure, it's beautiful. And we want to be attached to the gentleness of God. It's God's gentleness that wins us. It's that still small voice that wins us. It's God's mercy, it's God's compassion that wins us. Now, I would like y'all to hear the lyrics of Come Thou Fount, as ministered by Minister Michelle and Minister Cameron here. Move such a way.
Come thou fount of every blessing, tune my heart to sing thy grace. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. Teach me some melodious sonnet sung by flaming tongues above. Praise the mount I'm fixed upon it, mount of God's unchanging love. Here I raise my Ebenezer, Let that grace now, like a fetter, bind my wandering heart to thee. Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart, oh, take and seal it for thy course above.
So no, I didn't like the chancel choir, but I'll come to love that hymn. It hits different now. When you realize how far God has brought you, and you know that you have a tendency to want to veer away when life gets hard, the fact that He is still there and that stream of mercy is still flowing. So the